Oh hey, didn't see you there. You ever heard of cyberware? Well, I'm kind of ahead of that trend. I mean, yeah, moving faster than bullets is pretty cool, I guess, but I'm a step ahead. Part human, part machine. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is the newest absolute phenomenon to come to the anime community, and it deserves all those kind words and any other kind word I can think of. Okay, maybe not all of them. But if you're unfamiliar somehow, Cyberpunk Edgerunners is an anime that is somewhat loosely connected to the 2077 video game, which is also connected to the tabletop RPG of similar name, all being connected by the location of Night City, which if I can just take a quick sidestep, without really knowing, I would love to know what a cyberpunk session is like. Hey, I rolled a 1, what's that mean? Oh. Also, you're addicted to HDMI cords. Oh man. Now, I would be lying if I said I had any experience with Cyberpunk 2077, but that did not affect my enjoyment at all, which was by design, and a lot of promotional material for the series. Studio Trigger, who's the one behind this, you might know them for shows like Kill la Kill, Little Witch Academia, BNA, but this was a show that was designed at its core to be enjoyed by as many people as possible. Of course, you probably get something extra out of being familiar with the video game, but it's not required, and I'm proof of that. Go ahead, bring me to court, I got you. But right now I'm doing a lot of talking about not needing to play the game or anything else in the series. I'm talking about what's there in the show to enjoy. There's a whole lot of yellow. If there's one thing that's absolutely apparent from the history of this being a show that's connected to other pieces of media, the world building is immaculate. This is a city that makes you want to feel unwelcome, unwanted, with something around the corner to make your life randomly hell. Just like a restaurant 3 minutes before closing. And much like that example, you have no choice but to make the best of a bad situation. Find your own little corner that's yours and yours alone, no matter how much the waitress side-eyes you. This example went a little bit too far off, please don't do any of that, but that's exactly what we have with our main character, David. He had no place where he belonged in this depressing, awful city, but he found himself a place. No, I don't have any biases. I like the show purely for its, sheer quality. Now that's just slander. But to explain the location, Night City is a futuristic metropolis which is the cutting edge of cybernetic technology, and it's just terrible. If there's a problem you can have with a place, Night City probably has it 3 times worse. Crime is horrible, it's filthy, there's no free Wi-Fi, it's designed to make you feel both trapped and unwanted all at the same time. And this is a perfect implementation of a pre-established location. In a lot of video game anime, the pre-established setting can be hard to properly use because you're trying to fit in what fans would recognize and all that good stuff. Edgerunners gets around that by being a complete original story set in the universe of the game specifically. It can use bits and pieces as it sees fit, and you can really see how fleshed out it is, even more so than other anime that I would praise for its world building. Everything just makes so much sense. This city feels alive, it's breathing, it feels like an actual city location. So using nothing but context clues, stuff that's original to this world that doesn't exist in ours, doesn't need an explanation. There's never once an explanation of cyberware or slang or anything like that. You can just watch the show and put pieces together. So, you must be a cyberpunk. What the f*** are you talking about? And on the topic of slang, I am heartbroken that tomb isn't a Scrabble word. Makes me wonder why the hell I even watched. Well, what's the point of a well thought out world without some characters to toss into it? I don't know, makes a pretty good wallpaper, but we don't have to sweat that, because Edgerunners probably has one of the best casts I've had the pleasure of seeing in an anime in a long time. Each character meshes so well when they interact with each other. You hate the villains that you're supposed to hate, you love the characters you're supposed to love, all that good stuff. I wouldn't really say that any of these people are, good people, but you know what, none of my business. The city I live in has a day, so I don't know what it's like in Night City. But going into the characters, we have our protagonist David, who shows how one tragedy can put someone into that whole crime thing, like uploading music to torrent or a third-degree homicide. More on that later though. David is a fantastic character who grows to be in different positions through the course of the show, and is a tragic cybernetic backbone to the show that makes this as bittersweet as possible. And he's the way we meet the other members of the edge running group he's with. Okay, that's the subtitle out of the way, accuracy always wins. That aside, we have Lucy, who is actually designed around trying to have a very anime character within this production, which was a great cause of difficulty for the studio. It was pretty easy for me, so I don't know, it just sounds like a talent difference. Yeah, they wanted Lucy to be a cuter character for the sake of the fact that it's anime. That aside, she fits perfectly into this world, has her own mysteries, all that. Solid character. I don't want to go too far and spoil anything, so we will go to the funniest character, who's Becca. And she's the funniest for no other reason other than the fact that CD Projekt Red, the team behind 2077, didn't want her in the show based off of design alone. Oh, they changed their tune after the show released. Trigger refused to listen to them, and the fact that they didn't even consider changing it was hilarious. She's a very loose cannon type of character that clearly has a lot of depth that you see throughout the show, but it's never spelled out to you, which almost makes her more enjoyable than if you saw her progress from a specific character arc. She's the same in every episode she's in, but it feels like you learn more about her through her actions alone, which is really interesting. But those aren't the only characters. Like, we have Maine, who's the leader of the Edgerunner group David is in, who serves as a good bit of a mentor. But there's Falco, Kiwi, Pilar, and it's absolutely fantastic seeing everyone interact and work together. No matter how bad the setting is, I feel like nothing can truly hurt the characters, because when you have a strong network of people behind... Oh, thanks. And everyone has that same unspoken depth that Becca does. I've been saving this fact for this section, which is CYBERPUNK EDGERUNNERS is a Netflix original anime, which means it didn't air on TV. Not only that, but didn't have to follow TV guidelines, and let me tell you, Studio Trigger took absolutely full advantage of that fact. This is a brutal, brutal show. And I don't mean that in a bad way. The brutality is dialed up to 11 in a way that completely illustrates how violent a town literally based on crime can be. Which I honestly think was for the best when it comes to a show that's trying to illustrate how bad Night City can be. When people get a bad case of dead, it's brutal. There's no grace anywhere to be found. It's just a whole lot of stains. But I can also imagine how Studio Trigger felt when they knew they weren't designing a show that had to follow broadcasting rules. Woo! I'ma draw a boob! And it would be an absolute crime, not the cool edge running kind, more like the boring insider trading kind, if I didn't mention how incredible of a job Studio Trigger themselves did. If you've ever seen a production by them, you know how they bring a flair to the table like no other. And no other company has replicated the way Trigger does things. Whether that because they don't want to or they can't, who knows, but it's always just a one-of-a-kind experience seeing the kind of tricks Trigger will pull. Like a gun. Get it? Pull trigger? Okay, pun botched, but all that attention to detail and Trigger love is there. Trigger has a way of doing things in such a stylized but exaggerated manner. While it may look toned down, it feels more like it's style condensed. Like the way that David's ability works, where he goes really fast, you see doubles of him in the path he traveled, to really, like, in a weird way, iterate how fast he's going. And after we're done seeing it from David's perspective, we see it in normal time just to see how fast he's going. Is it the normal kind of outlandish you'd see from the studio? Nah. But is it something that really has that extra Trigger feel to it? 10 billion%. Everything feels how it should, but with just an extra pinch of pizzazz. It's like salt. You can never go wrong with too much salt. No, I've never heard the term blood pressure before. How do you know? And we cannot ignore how good the soundtrack is. Like with this Fire by Franz Ferdinand serving as the intro, being a really, really good fit for the theming of the story. But also insert songs from the game like the sentence of a title I really want to stay at your house that's more than capable of making you feel emotions that you didn't know existed. But okay, show that everyone says is good. What's the big deal? Well, I think this is more than just a damn good anime. I think this should be the gold standard of how anime based on games should be handled. This isn't just a game story slapped into an animated form. While that isn't always the worst thing in the world, and sometimes it can turn out pretty well, and I say sometimes because Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works and Science Gate exists, it's taken a medium that's built on interaction and then removing the interaction. Can it still be good? Yeah, of course. But I feel like that's normally fueled by liking the game it's based off of rather than it being a good standalone experience. And hell, liking the source material can give you a new list of things to complain about. There's a lack of support for my controller. Also, this is terrible. I think Edgerunners moves past this problem in two ways. It's a story that is completely separate, but takes place in the same area code as the game. The world building can be shared and explored. Hell, in Edgerunner's case, it can be explored in ways that the game just wouldn't have been able to. And the second is just the absolute care the animation team had for the game. People who watched the anime after playing the game said they knew where the characters were just by looking in the background or being familiar with the locations that people were at. Which was very intentional because Trigger wanted to give people that ability. Like, I mean, yeah, I can tell you they're a building, but it's that care that elevates Edgerunners beyond whatever it can be compared to. It is its own thing, but it gives a bit extra for those who know the series. It isn't trying to take what works in one medium and find a way to make it fit in another, but it makes sure it's doing what the source material can't. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a show that I may not recommend to everyone just for the sheer content warnings involved, but if it's up your alley, I can't recommend it enough, and I honestly think this should be the new gold standard for video game anime to come. But I have a lot more pressing matters. I just created cybernetic eyes. No, I can't see out of them, but they are pretty techy. You see, I took a VR headset, and then I stole credit for developing it. My genius scares me sometimes, and probably you too.